Jim Schultz here for Calculated Risk. And before we get going, don't forget, guys, the ways that you can help us the best are by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with a friend. So is the P&L the most important number in your portfolio? I mean, that's a low-hanging fruit. That seems to be the obvious choice, the expected move, as we would say as traders. But today, I want to offer up a different number that might be just as valuable and maybe even more important: your buying power. Because if you're an active trader, like, your buying power is your lifeblood. Like, your buying power is your oxygen. If you've got it, then that's good. But if you don't, then that is not so good. So today, what I want to do, let's drop a few breadcrumbs on the trail and see if we can't pick those guys up and learn a little bit more about buying power along the way. So let's go. So your buying power is essentially a broker calculated figure that shows you how much capital you have available to put towards new positions. It's not exactly your cash balance. It's not the same thing as your net liquidating value. It essentially shows you this is how much dry powder you have to use to do whatever it is you want to do. And you can kind of think of it like a credit limit. So let's say you have a $50,000 account. Your actual buying power might be higher than or lower than that number, depending on what kind of positions you have on, what you want to do, and what the broker-related calculations are for the margin requirements around those different strategies and positions. And as an options trader, it's critical for us to understand that different strategies and different positions and different stocks have different buying powers associated with them. So whether you're talking about defined risk or you're talking about undefined risk, these are going to be very different when it comes to the buying powers and the capital allocations we have to set aside for these types of strategies. So let's break these guys down individually. So with defined risk strategies, buying power and buying power requirements are very straightforward. If you do a vertical spread, let's say you do a $5 wide vertical spread that you sell for $2. So your maximum risk on the trade is $3. Or of course, the total would be $300 since there is 100 shares per contract per one lot. So in this situation, your maximum loss is $300. As long as you don't fiddle with the strikes and start changing around the strategy, the worst case scenario is $300. So your buying power on that trade is going to be about $300. In fact, I would say this is probably your biggest benefit with defined risk strategies. You know your worst case outcome. You know what the buying power is going to be. The buying power is not going to change over time, over the life of the trade. And so it makes it a bit easier to manage your portfolio because everything is clean and everything is known over the duration of the position. So for instance, let's say you've got a $30,000 account and you want to stay within the 1 to 3% position sizing parameters that we typically put out there as a reference guide for defined risk strategies. So that means you're going to be between $300 and $900 per position. So you could have a portfolio of, 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 defined risk positions, and they all line up relatively cleanly. The math is very simple. The buying powers are known. The worst case scenarios are known, and it all sets up pretty nicely and pretty cleanly. Okay, easy enough. But now let's turn our attention to the other type of strategy, undefined risk. So now, by the very name, by definition, the maximum loss on the strategy is not known. We don't know how bad it could be. There is theoretically no limit to how bad it could be, especially when you're talking about things like short calls, where there is no cap on how high a stock or an index could go. So the theoretical maximum loss is indeed unlimited. Okay, well, when the broker is trying to figure out how much capital to set aside for that position, they can't set aside an infinite amount of capital, and they can't set aside just some arbitrary number. So what they try to do is estimate what the buying power requirement should be for that specific situation. And there are essentially three things that they look at to determine what the buying power should be for an undefined risk position. So like a short put or a short strangle or a short straddle. They look at the stock price, they look at the implied volatility, and then the strike selection on the specific strategy factors in too. And then when the dust settles and you kind of look at all those different factors, generally speaking, buying power requirements on undefined risk positions tend to be around 15 to 20% of the notional value of that position. So for example, if I'm looking to do an undefined risk strategy on a stock that's selling for $200, I know one option contract is 100 shares. So a $200 per share stock, 100 shares for the whole option contract, that's a notional value, a total notional exposure on that position of $20,000. So chances are the buying power requirement on that position is going to be somewhere between $3,000 to $4,000 approximately. Now, it might be a little bit less, it might be a little bit more, but just as a back of the envelope kind of cocktail napkin way of understanding, hey, what do I think my buying power requirement is going to be for this undefined risk position? This is a very quick and easy way to get really close. And then naturally, it follows logically that the higher the stock price and the higher the volatility, the higher the buying power. So it's going to scale along with stock prices and implied volatility. So if you want to do an undefined risk position on a higher price stock or a stock with greater volatility, you have to expect and anticipate you're going to need to put up more buying power for that position. Okay, so that's defined risk and that's undefined risk. But here's the next step. Buying powers, specifically for undefined risk, are not static. They are dynamic. They change and they move. When you put an undefined risk strategy on, then the broker calculates the buying power that's required for that position in that moment. But once the trade is on, now all of a sudden the market starts moving, the stock's moving around, the implied volatilities are changing, all these different dynamic forces in the market are taking hold of that position. And as a result, the buying power is constantly being recalculated. And oftentimes when implied volatility spikes and things get really crazy, you will see buying powers expand. And so it's not that uncommon that when you put a trade on, the buying power is 3,000, but now all of a sudden it's 4,000. When I put the trade on, the buying power was 6,000. Now all of a sudden it's almost 8,000. So this is a very regular and common occurrence when it comes to understanding how buying powers are impacted on undefined risk positions when markets move and things change. Okay, so then understanding that, how can I begin to look at and approach buying power proactively as opposed to being reactive and reactively? Well, I think the most important thing that you can do is have a target on your buying power usage, your total utilization across all your buying power. Most traders are not going to allocate 100% of their buying power at the first possible opportunity that comes their way in the marketplace. A lot of traders like to live somewhere between, I'm going to say 20 to 25% on the low end, and then maybe 45 to 50% on the high end. So somewhere between that range is a really good average and a really good reference point for you to start thinking about how much buying power you want to deploy in your portfolio. Because by leaving capital on the sidelines, yes, you are potentially foregoing opportunities. And yes, you are potentially foregoing making more money more quickly. But when things happen, when buying powers expand, when the market moves and your positions get hit, you have a cushion that can absorb some of that move. And you do have capital on the sidelines for new opportunities that come your way. When volatility is even higher, when you see a trade that you really like and you have capital waiting to be deployed for that new position, if you allocated all of your capital at trade entry on the first go around, then your hands are going to really be tied when new things come around the corner, the next day or the next week or whatever. This is why for our individual positions on undefined risk strategies, we like to live somewhere between 3% and 7% of net lick as it relates to the buying power that we have to allocate per position. Now, if you have a larger account, so think multiple six figures into seven figures, you can easily be on the lower end of that range, if not even lower. If you happen to have a smaller account, so maybe only 10,000 or 12,000 or 8,000, or even 15,000 or 20,000, then you're likely going to have to be on the higher end of that range, if not even a little bit higher. So some of your undefined risk strategies might be 8%, or they might be 9%, or they might be 10%. So at the end of the day, P&L is the scorecard, right? Like P&L tells you how you are doing, but buying power shows you how long you can potentially stay in the game. Because if your buying power runs out, then it doesn't matter if your position would have recovered. It doesn't matter if you were right all along, like you're out, you're done, you're liquidated. So treat your buying power like the finite resource that it is. Understand defined risk, understand undefined risk, understand what it is that you are signing up for. Have a target buying power utilization and stick to it. That way you have enough capital ready to absorb the inevitable ebbs and flows of the marketplace, and you have capital ready for any new opportunities that might come your way that you can't see today because they're not there yet, but they might be there tomorrow. And we'll see you guys next time.